First Contact and Betrayal. Captain Maya Rodriguez stood at the viewport of the ESS Pioneer, watching the crystalline spires of the Nexari orbital station grow larger against the emerald backdrop of their homeworld. Even after 6 months of diplomatic missions, the sight still took her breath away. The Nexari were everything humanity had hoped to find among the stars. Peaceful, technologically advanced, and genuinely eager to share their knowledge. Message from Ambassador Lin. Lieutenant Park announced from his communication station. The hegemony representatives have arrived early. They're requesting we accelerate our approach. Maya frowned. The hegemony, a coalition of the galaxy's oldest spacefaring species, had initially ignored humanity's emergence onto the interstellar stage. Their sudden interest in Earth's partnership with the Nexari made her uneasy. Maintain standard approach vectors, she ordered. Tell the ambassador we'll dock precisely on schedule. The hegemony could learn their first lesson about humanity today. We wouldn't be rushed. The true lesson she would soon learn was one of betrayal. Hours later, Maya stood in the station's grand conference chamber, her dress uniform feeling unusually restrictive as she watched the hegemony delegation file in. Their leader, High Speaker Vaxteth, moved with fluid grace despite his massive, arthropodal form. His outer carapace gleamed with embedded technology that probably cost more than Maya's entire ship. Ambassador Lin rose to greet them, her silver hair catching the light from the station's crystalline walls. At her side, First Guide Starweaver, the Nexari's chief diplomat, spread his translucent wings in their species' traditional greeting. Honorable representatives, Starweaver began, his melodic voice carrying clearly through the chamber. We gather today to formally recognize humanity's contribution to galactic medicine. Their innovations in combining our healing crystals with their own nanotechnology have violated 17 different sections of the technology sharing accords. Vaxteth interrupted, his mandibles clicking in what Maya had learned to recognize as disapproval. The Nexari were granted observer status in the hegemony on the condition that they would respect our laws regarding technological advancement among pre-FTL species. Earth developed FTL travel independently. Lin pointed out calmly. We qualify for technological exchange under Section 5 of those same accords. A primitive fold drive cobbled together from stolen Zixri designs does not qualify as independent development, Vaxteth countered. The hegemony has been patient with humanity's overreach. That patience ends today. Maya's hand instinctively moved toward the sidearm she wasn't wearing. Something in the high speaker's tone set off every warning bell in her mind. The Nexari's violation of our most sacred laws cannot go unpunished, Vaxteth continued. Let this serve as a lesson to all who would upset the natural order of technological progression. The chamber's lights flickered. Maya's emergency comlink buzzed against her wrist, the Pioneer's automated distress signal. She looked up just in time to see massive ships dropping out of hyperspace through the viewport, their angular forms unlike anything in the known registry. What are you doing? Lin demanded, but Maya already knew. She lunged forward, reaching for the ambassador. Shields! She screamed into her comm, but it was too late. The first shots from the hegemony fleet didn't target the human ships. Instead, they struck the Nexari station's crystal lattice structure with surgical precision. The beautiful spires that had so enchanted Maya began to shatter, each one amplifying the destructive energy and channeling it through the station's network of crystalline corridors. Maya caught Lin as the deck bucked beneath them, dragging the ambassador toward the emergency pods. Around them, Nexari diplomats and station crew were dying, their bodies literally crystallizing as the chain reaction swept through the station. Starweaver reached for them, his wings already turning to glass, his last act using them to shield the humans from the initial wave. Get our people out, Maya ordered into her comm as she sealed Lin into a pod. Full retreat. All ships, emergency jump tow. The station shuddered again, and Maya lost her footing. As she fell, she caught a glimpse of Vaxteth and his delegation, safely ensconced in personal shield bubbles, watching the slaughter with cold efficiency. The last thing she saw before losing consciousness was the Pioneer, her beautiful ship, trying to shield the civilian vessels fleeing the massacre. Then darkness took her. Maya woke in a medical bay 3 days later. The wounds would heal, the doctors told her. The memories wouldn't. Earth's response to the massacre was not what the hegemony expected. There were no diplomatic protests, no threats of war, no visible military buildup. Instead, humanity went quiet. Trade reduced to a trickle. Colony ships stayed in port. To all appearances, Earth had learned its lesson about challenging the galactic order. But in classified facilities across human space, a different story was unfolding. Maya stood in one such facility 6 months after the massacre, staring at the holographic display of a new class of warship. The design incorporated salvaged Nexari crystals, not as weapons, but as the core of something the hegemony had never seen before. The crystals don't just store energy, Dr. Paddle explained, her dark eyes gleaming with controlled fury as she manipulated the display. They store patterns, information. The Nexari used them for healing, but we found other applications, military applications. How long until the first ship is ready? Maya asked, her hand unconsciously touching the crystalline scar tissue on her neck, a permanent reminder of that day. The Vindication will launch in 8 months, Paddle replied. 5 more will follow within the year. They won't expect them. The hegemony thinks they know humanity's capabilities. They're wrong. Maya nodded, studying the ship's specifications. The hegemony had meant to teach humanity a lesson about their place in the galaxy. Instead, they had taught humanity something far more dangerous. They had taught us the true face of power in our universe, and the price of complacency. They think we're broken, Maya said softly. Let them think that. When we return, it won't be with protests or pleas for justice. We'll return with a fleet they can't track, weapons they can't counter, and a fury they never thought to fear. In the depths of space, crystals hummed with stored patterns, waiting to be awakened. Humanity had learned its lesson well, not the one the hegemony intended, but a far more important one. The lesson that sometimes justice requires not just strength, but the wisdom to know when to wait, when to plan, and when to strike. The countdown to humanity's revenge had begun. The Hidden Fleet. 2 years after the Nexari massacre, the asteroid belt of the Ta-Ceti system looked exactly as it had for millennia, a cluttered dance of rocky bodies that most ships avoided. The hegemony's patrol cruiser gave it only a cursory scan before moving on. Their sensors showed nothing but ice, rock, and trace metals. They never detected the vast shipyards hidden within the larger asteroids, shielded by crystalline arrays that bent both light and scanning beams around them. They didn't see the thousands of workers, the automated construction bots, or the growing fleet of warships that would reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. Deep within the largest facility, designated Forge 1, Admiral Sarah Chen reviewed the latest progress reports. The surviving Nexari crystals had proven to be more than just storage devices. They were the key to technologies the hegemony had never imagined possible. "Show me the Vindication's latest test results," she ordered. The holographic display shifted, showing a massive warship unlike anything humanity had previously constructed. Its hull was dark matter-treated titanium, but throughout its structure, precisely arranged crystals formed complex geometric patterns. Dr. Alina Patel, now director of Project Nemesis, manipulated the display with practiced ease. The crystal matrices are performing beyond expectations. When fully activated, they don't just bend light around the ship. They phase it partially out of normal spacetime. The hegemony sensors will register nothing but background radiation and offensive capabilities. That's where it gets interesting. Patel highlighted specific crystal formations within the ship's structure. The Nexari used these configurations for healing, reconstructing damaged tissue by manipulating matter at the quantum level. We've repurposed that technology. The display showed a simulation of the Vindication engaging the Hegemony dreadnought. The human ship's weapons didn't fire conventional energy beams or projectiles. Instead, concentrated fields of quantum manipulation reached out, literally unmaking their targets piece by piece. "They won't just destroy ships," Paddle continued, her voice tight with controlled emotion. "They'll erase them from existence. No debris. No radiation signature. Nothing for the Hegemony to analyze or learn from." Chen nodded slowly. "How many ships are ready?" 6 capital ships including the Vindication. 12 destroyers. The rest of the fleet will be complete within 3 months. Patil paused, then added, "There's something else you should see." She brought up another simulation, this one showing a smaller vessel. "We call it the Whisper class. While the capital ships handle direct engagement, these infiltrators can slip through any defense grid ever created. Their crystal arrays don't just bend space. They fold it. Short-range teleportation, effectively instantaneous. Perfect for boarding actions," Chen mused. "When we take their command ships, I want their leaders alive. They're going to face justice for what they did." In another section of the facility, Captain Maya Rodriguez walked through the training grounds where crews learned to operate their new vessels. The surviving footage from her ship's sensors during the massacre had been instrumental in understanding how the Hegemony's weapons and defenses worked. Now, every simulation, every training scenario, was designed to exploit the weaknesses they'd identified. Captain on deck. The crew of the Vindication snapped to attention as Maya entered their training pod. These men and women had been chosen not just for their skills, but for their connection to the massacre. Each had lost someone when the Nexery station fell. "At ease," she commanded, studying their faces. "Today's simulation will be different. We're not just learning to fight. We're learning to hunt. The Hegemony believes they know everything about human capabilities. That assumption is their weakness, and we're going to exploit it." The simulation began, recreating the Hegemony's capital system in perfect detail. Maya watched as her crew demonstrated their mastery of the new technologies. The Vindication's crystal arrays sang with power as the ship phased through enemy defenses like a ghost, its quantum weapons reducing target after target to their component atoms. But it wasn't enough to win. They had to win so completely, so decisively, that no species would ever again mistake humanity's peaceful overtures for weakness. In her private quarters that evening, Maya reviewed the crew's performance. A small crystal shard hung from a chain around her neck, a piece of the Nexery station, retrieved from her medical bay after the attack. She touched it gently, remembering First Guide, Starweaver's final act of sacrifice. "We learned your lessons about healing," she whispered to the crystal. "But we're going to use that knowledge in ways you never imagined. The Hegemony wanted to teach us about power. We'll show them what real power looks like." Throughout human space, similar preparations were underway. The public face of humanity showed a chastened, submissive species that had retreated from galactic affairs. But behind that facade, in hidden shipyards and secret laboratories, a reckoning was taking shape. The Hegemony's patrols continued to pass through human systems, their sensors detecting nothing unusual. They noted with satisfaction how human ships now gave them a wide berth, how trade had dwindled to a trickle, how the once ambitious species seemed to have accepted its place in the galactic hierarchy. They never noticed how the background radiation in certain sectors had changed ever so slightly. They didn't recognize the significance of the faint crystalline signatures that their sensors dismissed as cosmic noise. They didn't realize that every patrol through human space was being studied, analyzed, and used to perfect the weapons of their own destruction. In the depths of Forge 1, Admiral Chen made her final preparations. The fleet was nearly ready. The crews were trained. The new technologies had been tested and refined. Soon, the Hegemony would learn the true cost of their arrogance. "Begin final deployment," she ordered. "It's time to show the galaxy what humanity does to those who murder our friends." Throughout the asteroid belt, ghost ships stirred to life, their crystalline hearts pulsing with carefully contained power. The hunt was about to begin. Operation Stormbreak. The hegemony's primary shipyards over Centauri Prime were considered impregnable. 3 rings of automated defense platforms surrounded the system's outer edge. A fleet of 200 warships patrolled the inner sectors. The planetary shield grid was powered by the system's twin stars themselves. None of that mattered when humanity's ghost fleet arrived. All ships, execute phase shift on my mark. Admiral Chen's voice was calm and measured across the fleet's quantum-encrypted channels. On the bridge of the Vindication, Captain Maya Rodriguez watched her tactical display as 30 human vessels emerged from their hidden fold space approach vectors. The hegemony's outer defense grid didn't even flicker. Their sensors, searching for conventional ship signatures, failed to register the human fleet's crystalline masked approach. It was like trying to detect a shadow passing through darkness. Mark. Maya felt the familiar resonance as the Vindication's crystal arrays activated. The ship didn't just become invisible. It partially shifted out of normal spacetime, existing in a quantum state that the hegemony's technology couldn't detect, let alone engage. First wave, begin infiltration, Chen ordered. Remember your training. No warnings, no demands, no mercy. The Whisper-class infiltrators moved first, their smaller frames allowing for complete spacetime displacement. They simply ceased to exist in normal space, reappearing microseconds later inside the hegemony's defensive perimeter. Their quantum weapons reached out with surgical precision, unmaking defense platforms one by one. The hegemony's first warning came when entire sections of their defense grid simply vanished. No explosions, no debris, no emergency signals. The platforms existed one moment, and in the next, they were reduced to their component atoms, scattered across space. "Sir," Maya's tactical officer called out. "Hegemony fleet is mobilizing. They're moving to defend the shipyards in standard assault formation." Maya allowed herself a grim smile. Exactly as predicted. All ships, execute attack pattern Nemesis. Show them what humanity has learned about warfare. The Vindication led the charge, its massive form phasing in and out of normal space as it approached the hegemony fleet. Enemy weapons fire passed harmlessly through the spaces where the human ships appeared to be, striking nothing but vacuum. Multiple hegemony capital ships launching antimatter torpedoes, Tactical reported. They're attempting to saturate the area. Let them waste their ammunition, Maya responded. Bring quantum disruptors online. Target their flagship first. The Vindication's crystalline heart pulsed with power. The technology that the Nexari had used for healing now reached out with a far darker purpose. The quantum manipulation field enveloped the hegemony flagship, and for a moment, the massive vessel seemed to shimmer. Then it began to come apart. Not with explosions or structural failure, but with an almost beautiful precision. Layer by layer, system by system, the flagship was reduced to its constituent atoms. The hegemony crew didn't even have time to realize what was happening before they ceased to exist. By the eternal, the panicked transmission from another hegemony vessel cut across all frequencies. What kind of weapons are these? How are they? The transmission cut off as the Vindication's sister ships joined the attack. More hegemony vessels began to vanish, their matter scattered at the quantum level, impossible to reconstruct or analyze. Sir, Maya's communications officer interrupted. We're detecting a massive power surge from the planetary shield grid. They're diverting energy from their shipyards to reinforce their defenses. As expected, Maya nodded. Signal the Whisper Squadron. Begin Phase 2. While the main fleet engaged the hegemony's forces, 5 Whisper-class vessels slipped through the chaos of battle. Their enhanced crystal arrays allowed them to fold space itself, covering vast distances in microscopic jumps that were impossible to track or intercept. They reappeared inside the shipyards themselves, their specialized boarding teams already moving. These weren't just soldiers, they were engineers and scientists, each equipped with crystal-enhanced suits that granted them similar phasing abilities to their ships. This is Whisper 1. The squad leader's report came in. We've secured the primary control center, beginning data extraction. Maya watched as the tactical display updated. The hegemony fleet was in disarray, caught between weapons they couldn't defend against and an enemy they couldn't effectively target. Their rigid command structure, so effective against conventional forces, was proving catastrophically vulnerable to humanity's unconventional warfare. "Admiral," Maya called out on the command channel, "the shipyards are secured. Should we proceed with total destruction?" "Negative, Captain." Chen's reply was immediate. "Extract all technical data first. Everything they know about their defensive systems, their shipbuilding techniques, their command protocols. Then reduce the facilities to atoms. The hegemony is about to learn that their technological superiority was an illusion." The battle lasted less than an hour. When it was over, the hegemony's greatest shipyard complex had simply ceased to exist. No debris field, no scattered remnants, nothing for their investigators to study or learn from. Just empty space where their pride and power had once been displayed. "Send the message," Chen ordered as the fleet regrouped. "Let's make sure they understand exactly why this happened. On every hegemony frequency, on every communication channel across their territory." The same video began playing. It showed the massacre of the Nexari station, recorded from multiple angles by human ships. It showed the deaths of innocent beings whose only crime had been helping humanity advance. And after the footage, a simple message appeared. "This was your lesson to us about power. Here is our response. We are coming for the rest of your worlds. You cannot detect us. You cannot stop us. You cannot hide from us. Justice is coming." In her command chair, Maya touched the crystal shard around her neck. "First Guide Starweaver," she whispered. "I hope you can see what your sacrifice has led to. We learned from you about healing, about peace, about cooperation. But we also learned that sometimes justice requires a heavier hand." The Ghost Fleet vanished back into fold space, leaving behind nothing but uncertainty and fear in the hearts of the hegemony's leaders. Their greatest fortress had fallen without a trace, their most powerful weapons had proven useless, and their enemies had simply disappeared. The message was clear. Humanity had not been broken by the hegemony's show of force. They had been transformed by it, and that transformation was about to reshape the galaxy. The price of pride. High Speaker Vaxteth stood before the Hegemony High Council, his once gleaming carapace now dull with stress. The chamber, carved from living crystal deep within their throne world, had witnessed 10,000 years of hegemony dominance. Now, for the first time, it echoed with the sound of fear. 3 more systems lost in the past week," he reported, his mandibles clicking with agitation. "No debris, no survivors, no warning. Our defense fleets simply cease to exist. Our most advanced detection systems find nothing until it's too late." "Impossible," Councillor Zixnar thundered, his crystalline form vibrating with rage. "They are primitives, barely a century into space travel. How could they have developed such technology?" "The Nexari." The words came from Supreme Chancellor Kavoth, her serpentine form coiled tightly in her gravity throne. "We thought we were punishing them for sharing medical technology. Instead, we gave humanity everything they needed to destroy us." The chamber fell silent as surveillance footage played across its walls. A hegemony battle group, pride of their northern fleet, patrolling the Rigel sector. Then, in the space of 3 minutes, ships began to vanish. No explosions, no energy signatures, just absence. The recording ended with a human vessel briefly phasing into view, a deliberate taunt, before disappearing again. "They're using the crystal's quantum properties," Kavoth continued. "The same principles the Nexari used for healing. Humanity has weaponized beyond anything we thought possible, and we drove them to it. Then we must strike at their worlds," Zixnar insisted. "Burn their colonies, destroy their homeworld. Show them the true might of the hegemony." "We tried." Vaxteth's voice was barely a whisper. Secondary Strike Fleet engaged what appeared to be a vulnerable human colony last cycle. It was a trap. The entire fleet was eliminated. The humans, he paused, mandibles trembling. They sent us the gun camera footage. They wanted us to see. In a secure bunker beneath the council chamber, Dr. Ranthek, the hegemony's chief scientist, worked frantically to understand their enemy's capabilities. Scattered around him were fragments of crystal recovered from various battle sites, the only traces the humans sometimes left behind. "The patterns are impossible," he muttered, examining a shard under quantum microscopes. "They're using the crystal matrices to store not just energy or information, but space-time itself. Each crystal is like a lens, bending reality around their ships. Our weapons can't hit what isn't fully present in our dimension." A junior researcher burst into the lab, his carapace pale with excitement. "Doctor, we've detected a pattern. The human attacks. They're not random. They're systematically eliminating every facility, every leader, everyone who had any connection to the HFY massacre." Ranthek's compound eyes widened. "They're not just fighting a war. They're delivering a sentence." Above, in the council chamber, the debate had turned desperate. "We could offer reparations," suggested Councillor Ethfun. "Acknowledge our error, provide compensation." "They're not interested in compensation," Kivoth cut in. "Haven't you been paying attention? This isn't about resources or territory. This is about justice. Their kind of justice." A sudden commotion at the chamber's entrance drew all eyes. The junior communication officer rushed in, protocol forgotten in his panic. "Supreme Chancellor, we've lost contact with the Tartarus Defense Network." Vaxteth felt his heart stop. Tartarus was their most heavily fortified system, home to the hegemony's primary military academy and research facilities. Its defenses were considered absolute. "How many ships?" Kivoth demanded. "None, Supreme Chancellor. No ships detected at all. But our outposts there are just disappearing, one by one. Something is inside the system, moving between facilities, but our sensors can't." The chamber's lights flickered. Throughout the throne world, power systems began to fluctuate. "They're here," Vaxteth whispered. The massive view screens that lined the chamber walls activated simultaneously, displaying a single human face. Captain Maya Rodriguez, her expression cold as space itself, looked down at the assembled leaders of the hegemony. "This is your final warning," she stated, her voice echoing through the chamber. "Surrender those responsible for the HFY massacre for trial under human justice, or we will continue our mission. You cannot hide them. You cannot protect them. We will find them all. You dare threaten the hegemony?" Zixnar raged. "We have ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. And in all that time," Maya replied, "you never learned the most important lesson. True strength isn't about how long you've held power. It's about how you use it." The transmission cut off. Moments later, alarms began blaring throughout the complex. Multiple breaches detected. Security forces reported. Unknown entities appearing inside secure zones. Our weapons are passing right through them. In the chaos that followed, as Whisper-class infiltrators phased through the most secure defenses ever created, Vaxteth finally understood. The hegemony had tried to teach humanity about power, about their place in the galactic order. Instead, they had taught humanity something far more valuable: the price of pride, and the true cost of underestimating those you considered beneath you. As quantum disruption fields began to tear through the throne world's defenses, as the carefully maintained order of 10 millennia began to unravel, the High Speaker remembered the look in Ambassador Lin's eyes just before the HFY massacre. It hadn't been fear he'd seen there. It had been pity. Now he understood why. The hegemony's pride had led them to commit an atrocity. That same pride had prevented them from seeing the consequences building. And now, as human forces methodically dismantled everything they had built, that pride would be their undoing. In the depths of space, Admiral Chen watched the operation unfold. "Send the final message to all hegemony worlds," she ordered. "Let them know that their leadership chose this. Let them know why this is happening. And let them know that once justice has been served, humanity will remember who stood with the hegemony and who stood aside. The galaxy was changing. The age of the hegemony was ending. And humanity, once dismissed as primitives, was teaching a lesson that would echo through the stars for millennia to come. Dawn of a new era. The trial of the hegemony leadership was broadcast across every inhabited world in known space, not through traditional channels. Humanity had developed something new, using modified Nexari crystals to transmit quantum-entangled signals that couldn't be blocked or jammed. Every species would witness justice being served. Captain Maya Rodriguez stood at attention in the converted amphitheater aboard the Vindication, watching as the prisoners were led in. High Speaker Vaxteth, once proud and imperious, now moved with the hesitant steps of one whose entire worldview had been shattered. Behind him came the other architects of the Nexari massacre, each escorted by guards wearing crystal-enhanced armor. Ambassador Lin, who had survived the massacre thanks to Maya's quick action, rose to deliver the opening statement. Her silver hair had more gray now, but her voice was strong and clear. "We are gathered here not for revenge, but for justice," she began. "Not just for the Nexari who died, but for every species that has suffered under the hegemony's doctrine of technological supremacy. Today, we show the galaxy a different way." The evidence was presented methodically. The massacre itself, shown in full detail. The deliberate targeting of medical facilities. The destruction of cultural archives. The calculated effort to erase not just the Nexari's lives, but their entire legacy of healing and cooperation. "You could have simply destroyed their station," Admiral Chen noted during her testimony. "Instead, you chose to make them suffer, to make an example. Now you will serve as a different kind of example." Throughout the proceedings, Maya found her attention drawn to the crystal shard she still wore, her reminder of First Guide Starweaver's sacrifice. The Nexari's final gift to humanity had been unintentional but profound. The understanding that power and wisdom must go hand in hand. The defense argued that the hegemony's actions were legal under their own laws, that the preservation of technological hierarchies was necessary for galactic stability, that humanity's response had proven exactly why such controls were needed. "You speak of stability," Maya countered during her testimony, "but you mean stagnation. You speak of control, but you mean oppression. The Nexari showed us a better path, one where advancement comes through cooperation, not domination. Their final legacy will be the proof that their way was right, and yours was wrong." The deliberations lasted 3 days. When the verdict was delivered, it was unanimous. The hegemony leadership was found guilty of crimes against sentient life. Their punishment, however, was not what many expected. Death would be too simple, Lin announced. "Instead, you will live to see everything you built transformed. Your empirical power is broken. Your technological monopolies are ended. But more importantly, you will help us rebuild what you tried to destroy." The sentence was both justice and poetry. The condemned would spend the rest of their lives working alongside human and allied scientists, sharing their knowledge freely, helping to advance medical technology across all species. Their expertise would serve life rather than power. But this was more than just a trial's end. It was the beginning of something new. In the months that followed, humanity revealed the full scope of their plans. The crystal technology they had developed wouldn't be kept secret or used solely for military purposes. Instead, they began sharing it with other species, teaching them how to use it for healing, for communication, for exploration. The Vindication, the ship that had helped bring the hegemony to justice, was transformed. Its quantum weapons were removed, its military systems repurposed. The vessel became a mobile research station and diplomatic hub, its crystal heart now powering innovations in medical science and space exploration. Maya stood on its bridge one last time before the transformation began, remembering the path that had brought them here. "We could have simply destroyed them," she mused to Admiral Chen. "We had the power." "That's exactly why we didn't," Chen replied. The hegemony fell, because they never understood the responsibility that comes with power. We had to show the galaxy a better way. A year to the day after the trial, representatives from 50 species gathered at the site where the Nexari station had once stood. There they signed the Starweaver Accords, named in honor of the first guide who died protecting his human allies. The agreement established new principles for galactic cooperation. Technological advancement would be shared, not hoarded. Progress would come through collaboration, not competition. In the debris field that had once been the station, construction began on something new. The Nexari Memorial Center would serve as both a reminder and a promise, a facility dedicated to advancing medical science for all species, its crystal spires echoing the architecture of the station that had once stood there. Maya attended the dedication ceremony, standing beside Ambassador Lin as the first crystalline foundation was laid. Among the attendees were former hegemony scientists, now working freely with humans and other species, their expertise finally serving life rather than power. The hegemony thought they were teaching us about power, Lin remarked, watching the construction. Instead, they taught us about responsibility, about justice, about the kind of species we wanted to be. Maya touched the crystal at her neck one last time, then removed it. She placed it within the foundation, alongside thousands of others contributed by survivors and allies. Together, they would form the heart of the new facility, their combined resonance powering research that would benefit all species. First Guide Starweaver once told me that the greatest power isn't the ability to destroy, she said softly. It's the ability to heal, to build, to bring people together. The hegemony never understood that, but we did. And now the galaxy will too. As the ceremony concluded, ships from dozens of species flew in formation overhead, their hulls incorporating the crystal technology that humanity had refined and shared. They were no longer weapons of war, but symbols of a new age, one where advancement came through cooperation, not conflict. The ghost fleet that had brought the hegemony to its knees was transformed, its ships becoming exploration vessels and research platforms. The quantum phasing technology that had made them such effective weapons now allowed them to study phenomena previously thought unreachable, to rescue ships in distress, to push the boundaries of known space. And in the depths of space, crystal arrays hummed with a different purpose. No longer masks for weapons of war, they became beacons of hope, powering a network of healing centers, research facilities, and diplomatic hubs across the galaxy. The age of the hegemony was over. The legacy of the Nexari lived on, and humanity, once dismissed as primitives, had shown the galaxy that true power lies not in the ability to dominate, but in the wisdom to know when to extend a helping hand. The dawn of a new era had begun.